Oh, holy crap. I just dropped a load here in Hidalgo. 4 pallets that my van couldn't carry, so we stacked them, and it said big bold letters, "Do not stack." We stacked them anyway, and one of them, because of the weight, kind of crushed into the other one. We had to do some surgery to get those suckers out of here. I don't know what this guy's doing. Alrighty. I'm going to see what it looks like down here. I haven't spent a lot of time. When we got real close to it. Over here, Hidalgo is, the border kind of snakes around down here. We're like in a little finger that's hanging down kind of into Mexico. Oh, lovely roads. Hold on a sec here. Bumpy bump, bumpy bump. Here we go. This kind of reminds me of Laredo, but it's not as hustle bustle and as industrial. Oh, hold on. Let me switch to my headset here. Okay, dummy, put your headset on. All right. This is turn. All right, we're getting on this whatever road this is. All right, let me see if I can show you the border wall up here. This is straight northbound right now. I just got on the road. Like I said, there's less hustle and bustle here, a little quieter. A lot of car lots though. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm not hearing a lot out of the global warming crowd these days. Those guys are blocking the snot out of there. Okay, let's see. Border. Wow, this van rides differently with no weight in it. I guess I got used to. That was like 1,600 miles. Yeah, it's gonna blow around again. All right, right up here is where I saw it. I don't know what the reception is in this part of the world. What kind of cell phone reception? You can talk on the phone, but there's a lot of limits to live streaming when you get to certain areas. There it is. Well, let me swing over here. Alright, I see what I can do. I'm going to swing back around here. Hello from Norway. Oh, right on, Norway. Let me swing around here. I want to show you something. I've never actually been this close to the border, and it looks like I can get right up to it. There's a big fence up here. I am not crossing the fence, but I can get right up to it, so we're going to whippy Yui here. Left on green arrow. Fine, I'll wait till it turns green. Yeah, I did a drop just a few minutes ago. My payload was supposed to be 3 pallets totaling 2,000 pounds, and they gave me 4 pallets at 2,500, and my van won't hold the 4th pallet unless they stack it. And the big signs all over the pallets that says, "Don't stack the pallets." Do you see ice? No, there's no ice down here at all. It's cold, but there's no ice. But check this out. I've never been this close before, but the border's right here, the fence. You're from Norway. You haven't. Of course, if you're from Norway, you probably haven't seen this either. So hold on here. Check this out. As soon as we make this turn, Hidalgo, population 7,300. All right. Looky. Yeah, this is South Texas. I'll tell you how far south. Look right there. That's the border. Oh. Holy crap. Did somebody drop artillery rounds on this? Oh. Away from the fence. I'm talking to them. I'm not getting that close, but look, we got some businesses right up here against the fence, and it's a rolling, it looks like a rolling gate. But what I'm looking at is this road. Holy crap. Boy, this is tore up. Hold on. Do a little bouncing here. But that is the official wall to Mexico. And like I said, the border around here snakes around into S-turns and stuff. And I'm going to be heading north here in a second. I got to go. They have these inland border checkpoints, which the constitutionality of them is a little bit of a gray area, but they have them anyway. Well, they got 2 porta potties sitting there. That's kind of cool. So we're driving right here. I wonder why that's wide open. Unless there's somebody up here guarding it. Okay, drop off here, drop off. Well, like I said, there's businesses right here. I guess you can get close. Oh, sorry, can't see anything. All right. Yeah, they got porta potties. Come over and hold on. Oh, well, that's interesting. See this big heavy wall? Look at this. And it abruptly ends right there. Okay, that makes a whole lot of no sense. Let me tiptoe up here and look. Probably shouldn't be doing this, but there's no sign that says I can't. And I'm not going up into there. I'm just going to go look. All right. I think this road right here, let me pull this out. There's the road I think the Border Patrol goes back and forth on. And I think it's safe to say I'm on camera. That's it. I have never been this close before. That's kind of interesting. Wow. All right, I'm going to back away so somebody freaks out. Who knows? There's probably someone watching me on camera right now going, oh my God, he got close to the wall. But there's no sign here that says I can't do that. Can you meet me in America? It looks easy to get over. Yeah, it looks like it. It's interesting how they have that heavy-duty wall and it just is a fence. It looks like a chain link fence past that. Yeah, it's wow. I do know back in the day they used to put shoe stores right up against the border. This is again back in the day, and what would happen was they would leave a back door open and people would cross over. People would cross over and go to the shoe store through the back door, and then they'd run out, go back over the cross into Mexico, and it's kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge situation, but I don't know what it is now. But wow. What kind of... Looks like you just walk across, but there's cameras everywhere there. And who knows, maybe I'll get pulled over the next couple of minutes. Oh, we saw a van when we saw the name on it. Wow. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head north from here. I think I'm going up 281, and again, I don't know what the reception is. That beautiful door. Yeah, that door is sliding door with nobody there. Interesting. Hold on here. More potholes. And there's an inland checkpoint. I'm not real fond of them, but it's up by Falfurrias. It's kind of famous. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream this whole time because it may drop offline. It does occasionally. Here we go. Here we go. Wow. They don't take care of this road. Yes, 281 goes all the way into town. I chased it. I came down 77, did a dog leg on 285, and then went down 281 all the way down here. And I think they have, I think that's for the Falfurrias checkpoint. It was late last night when I came in. And if I can, I'll keep this rolling, and I want you to see the checkpoint. Yeah, I don't think that person cares. All right. They come in person. No, those people don't care. They're going into whatever business. So there's businesses right up against the fence. All right. I got just under 3/4 of a tank of fuel. Gas prices down here are $2.30, $2.35 right here in this area. They're a little better up the road, and that's where I'm headed right now. All right. Yeah, wow, does this van ride differently with 2,500 pounds out of the rear end on it? Little caravan one because I didn't. Yeah, the thing about birth certificates is kind of a sore up point with me. I got my passport recently, and here a couple of years ago, and they require, get a load of this, they require you to mail them your passport. So your birth certificate. So I got the passport and I didn't get the birth certificate back. So my original 1968 model birth certificate is gone, which means somebody else is probably using it. So someone working at the passport office probably sold it to somebody. Here we go. All right. Yeah, like I said, in Laredo, there are these trucks, and you see these cars. You wouldn't see this many cars in Laredo. It's all trucks. I mean, 18-wheelers everywhere. Oh, this is not Florida. Yeah, I agree. They probably sold it. Oh, this is Hidalgo, Texas. It's a little bit west of Brownsville. And we are, like I said, right here on the fence. So I'm following this up, and I'm just chasing my GPS here at this point. It's early morning. A lot of used car lots, a lot of wrecked car dealers and scrap yards and stuff down here. Somebody said there's really good Mexican food, which kind of makes sense. Yeah, it's it's up to 34 degrees right now. That's no, it's H-I. Well, the way I saw it spelled was, let me look it up here. It's gonna make me read. Hidalgo, Hidalgo. I hate that word. In San Antonio. Really? I wonder why it's this cold down here. Hidalgo, that's the one. That's the one. Okay, this says go up here about 4 miles and turn. I was at a lot in Laredo working, and a guy tried, again, we weren't too far from the border, but a guy drove across in this ragged out mid-1970s truck with a handmade kind of a roof over the whole vehicle. It was that corrugated tin, and the guy opened up coolers, and he had like those oversized styrofoam cups, and it was 1 scoop of rice and 1 scoop of beans. That's just a base protein and carbs, and he sold them for $1. Yeah, Laredo is kind of scary, I agree. But it was just 1 scoop of beans, 1 scoop of rice in a cup, and with a plastic spoon. He was selling to all the workers, who were all probably from across the border, for $1. And the guy sold out. I mean, he went through probably 75 of these. Just boom, boom, boom. So, and then he got in his truck and drove back across the border. I was like, dude, that's cool. I've driven through El Paso. I have not spent any time in El Paso. Of course, I haven't spent any time here either. I just slept at a Pilot last night. But we are heading, this is straight northbound on I think we're on the 115 spur is what this is called. I don't know if you can see it, but there's car lots, little kind of worn out buildings on both sides. A lot of car lots. Let's see here. Yeah, a lot of car lots. This is like ridiculous. I don't know. Let me put this over here. See all these things over here? And there's the used truck lots. Border truck sales. Yeah, there's a catchy view. So I'm gonna run this feed until it starts to cut out, which Pilots run for their coffee. Yeah, unfortunately I'm not a coffee drinker, but I go there. The doggo. Yeah, that's it. A power station. One different thing about this town I'm noticing is in Laredo, there are Border Patrol and Highway Patrol and local police vehicles everywhere. It's like every 4th vehicle on the road. And here I haven't seen one, which is weird, but I haven't seen one. Hello? You know, there's all this stuff going on with ICE raids and whatnot, and they're talking about self-deporting people, and coming down here the last couple times I've actually seen them. Oh, my voice. Well, you could have me talk in radio voice if you'd like, and I can bob my head up and down for emphasis. And I've seen these people are coming down in minivans, and they have luggage on top of the vehicle that's like 6 feet tall. They're at a gas station, look over it, and they're towing trailers with, tarps wrapped over it, and it's people heading southbound. And I think it's the self-deporting, and I think the reason for that, if you pack up your bags and go south, you're dynamite, but if you hang around and they grab you off the street, you don't get to take any of your stuff with you. So I think that's the motivation for people to self-deport, is you get to keep your assets, because if they just grab you off the street, everything you have back at the house is gone. I'm guessing that's the reason behind it. That's what I'm saying. Just, keep your stuff or don't keep your stuff, because it looks like they're coming for everybody like that. We're crawling up here. There's a lot of interesting paint work down here on buildings. Just a boring plain building and people get out of there. You get paid $3,000 to leave? Really? Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, people do like side of a building with nothing on it, and they'll paint something on the side of the building that's from like old Mexican culture, something like a scenic look to it. It's kind of nice looking. Oh, whatever this guy in front of us is, the back of his truck says free delivery. I'm kind of curious what that is. But here, more car lots. Look at that. More of these little throwaway car lots with big fences around. Well, I dropped the load off. I have to be home for some... I'm sorry, I pushed a button. I knocked myself offline there. I'm back. No, I'm actually empty right now. Really? You get paid to leave. Interesting. Whoa. I'm not under load right now. This is not exactly a hot spot for cargo coming in. Neither is Laredo, and the problem with Laredo is there's a lot of stuff going down there, but nothing coming up. And you pull into a pilot, there'll be free vans sitting there doing nothing, waiting on the miracle load. Go across the highway to the Loves, and there'll be another 40 or 50 vans sitting there waiting on a load. And there's no loads coming out of here. And when they are, they pay bumkus. So when I come down here, I just drop and go. I've never been here per se, but it's not any different. I called dispatch and said, hey, nope, not in Corpus. I'm in Hidalgo, over here by Brownsville. And I just called dispatch. They said, you're the only company van in the area, and there's nothing on the boards anywhere. And I said, all right. Yeah, this job, you can make money doing this. There's a lot of pitfalls to it, and like a lot of industries and a lot of jobs, you don't know what you're getting into until you get into it. I had a guy I met, not a trucker, I'm an expediter. It's kind of the same job, but in a miniature scale. I drive a van, a box van. And the advantage of expediting over trucking is I'm under 10,000 pounds gross weight. I have a CDL, I don't use it. You can do this job with a basic car driver's license, and the job falls under the same rules. I don't have log books, I don't go through weigh stations, I don't go through checkpoints, I don't do any of that stuff. So, and I can drive for 20 hours if I want to, or truckers, I think they're allowed to drive for 11. So I can drive as much as I want. And the advantage of having a van is I can take this van home and take it to the grocery store, you know, and you don't have to kick and claw your way to find parking, which is a non-stop nightmare for trucks, for big trucks. Oh, and it's really easy to back up. And I have a backup camera. Okay, we're turning on Interstate 2. We're going to be going into the sun here for a minute. Yeah, well, the thing is, when you're coming down the highway, they say self-deporting, they're carrying everything they have on these cars, and they're in this part of Texas. There's nothing here until you get to the border. So unless they spontaneously packed up in Illinois and decided to move to Laredo, which doesn't seem very likely, I think they're self-deporting. This is not exactly a mecca for people to retire to, these border states, these border towns like this. This is not, it's kind of a little rough and tumble, I guess. Hey, Universal Uno is back. How the lights look. Yeah. Currently it's 34 degrees here. It was 28 when I woke up this morning. That's what I'm saying. I'm not hearing from the global warming people these days. Well, out of pocket, this is my van. When I retired from aviation, I sold my car and bought the van. And the company I signed on with, the way it works is I dispatch through them. They find the loads for me. I actually had a Mini Cooper because I was driving long ranges and I was driving kind of quick. So this van is mine. I pay for the van, I pay for the gas, and I pay for the, get load of this, empty insurance. And the company I drive for pays for the loaded insurance. That's 2 insurance policies, you know, just to keep it annoying. All right, like I said, we're heading into the sun now, so I apologize. I'll follow this a little ways. And I pay for the gas, I pay for the maintenance, I pay for everything that's on my van. And they find the loads, and they pay me a certain per mile or just a flat rate for the load. And I have met a guy, he's a friend of mine now. I got him into YouTubing. And if you ever look him up, his page is called Expediting Journey, I think he called it. Wait a minute, I got to keep my lane. Nope, can't go that way. Expedited Journey, and he started doing this. But he was an independent driver, which is fine. Oh, I have a Ford Transit 250. But this guy was an independent driver, so he was dispatching himself and driving and paying all his own insurance and paying for load boards. He had a lot of expenses. And then found out, and this, I'd never even considered this. Yes, you're busy. Yes, you're paying a lot of money. But as an independent contractor, you bid a load, deliver the load, and then you wait to get paid. And they're like, yeah, we'll pay you when we get around to it. So he goes, I'm sitting at home. I have no money. I'm owed money by 4 different people. And they're like, yeah, we'll pay you when we get around to it. Well, how are you supposed to make a living if people just don't, won't pay you? Well, that's if you're a small-time independent driver. But if you're signed on with somebody, that guy's having a heck of a time getting up to speed. If you're with a company, there's like 200 vehicles with the company I'm driving with, and they, I get paid every Friday like clockwork. I never even considered people just ignoring you. I mean, what are you going to do about it? Some big company owes you money, and they just go, yeah, we'll pay you this week, next week, or whenever we feel like it. Yeah, it's hit and miss. The pay's up and down. Everybody's got their numbers. Let's see here, getting on the highway here. Here's a wall of cars. Yeah, yesterday I was live streaming. There were like no cars on the road, all the way through Houston, all the way down here. No cars on the road. Really weird. Really, really weird. And that's why I was filming, and people from Houston were jumping on, going, "Dude, there's no cars on the road." I don't know. Something I don't know about. Yeah, this is people who want to get in this job. If you want to try it out, the quickest way to stick your finger in the pool to check the temperature is become what's called a fleet driver, which means you're driving somebody else's van. The dispatch company doesn't own the van; it's a private person. Is there a game or real driving? Is this a game? Always use a factor. I'm trying to read into the sun here. Well, I get all my loads from my dispatcher, and because they're paying my loaded insurance, which isn't cheap, I'm beholden to them. I can't do this on the side. What's happening? We're down here by the Mexican border in the town of Hidalgo. I hate that word. And I just dropped off a load, and I'm just showing people what it looks like down here. And we are working our way north. I'm hoping this feed stays alive. And we're going to go through a checkpoint up here in a ways. One of these inland Gestapo checkpoints they put up, which are with a questionable legality. Hill dog, go. Hill dog, go. Got it. Hate it. Yeah, our company's pretty big. Most of the cargo they run, well, for most of this business in the northeast part of the country, and this obviously isn't, but I'm the guy that asked for a Laredo run because I live near Houston, and I'm more or less deadheading home. It's about 300 something miles. It's back up to the north outside of Houston, and a lot of people don't want to come down here. It pays good getting down here, but you can't get out. And these people will sit down here and wait for days and days and days. Do you go home or? I'm going home. The headquarters for this company that I'm driving for is, let's see, 2196 is in Toledo, Ohio. That's HQ for us. So I'm way out of the area, and I'm an independent contractor, so it's not like I have to ask if I can take some time off. I just say I'm going out of service. See, where do I live? I have a whole lot with this job. It's a pretty laid-back job. I mean, not safe to drive green. Yes, mother. Let's see, 69 Chuck. North. No, that guy's going too fast. It's relaxing. I'm retired from aviation, so I'm used to being away from the home and going to work, and this is a lot less stressful. I'm the Winston-Salem. Yes, and it's a van, not a car. All right, I gotta do, this is my turn, 269C281 Edinburgh. I swear I came down. Oh, I call it that because it's totally unnecessary. You know, there's a border crossing, and then you go 60 miles inland, and all of a sudden, you're going across another border crossing. You know, a little stop, and we want to get in your business, and it doesn't really serve a purpose, especially during the last administration when they left 10 million people flood into the country, and yet they're still stopping people up here. Stopping people, not stopping people down here coming in the country. They're free to go. It's not useful, it's not necessary, and it's very intrusive. It's like if they set one at the front at the end of your street and said, okay, you got to go through that. And I don't agree with it. All right, I'm not looking at the screen. I'm trying to drive here, sorry. All right, next turn, 94 miles. Yeah, see, this is normal. Cars all over the road. But yesterday, wide open roads. Bridge phobia. 662. Yeah, wow, boy, this car is all bouncy with no weight in it. Oh, the barrier. Yeah, I have a CDL Class B. It's for like straight trucks and stuff. I thought I was getting a local job driving a trash truck because it looked interesting. The little mechanical arm that reaches over and grabs the box and whips it over your shoulder. I think that looks kind of cool. That would be a fun job. And yeah, the company changed hands right when I got my CDL, and that was the end of that. So I got back into Expediting. The advantage of this job is you get to drive all over the country, and you get to meet different people, and it's kind of eye-opening. I was driving a back road in Wisconsin here, and I look over and there's a roadside fruit stand. A little tiny box, and it's a self-serve, you know, self-pay. Now, to some people, that's perfectly normal. For living in Texas, it's not. And I pulled in there, and it had all this homemade stuff plus maple syrup, and it turns out this woman came walking up, and I'm looking at her, and the way she's dressed, it caught my attention because it was an Amish farm. And these people are making food. They had some fruits and vegetables sitting out there, and it's a cash box, and it just said, thanks for your honesty, and obviously it had been there a long time, which is kind of cool. Oh, my official job, this is called Expediting, which I refer to as miniature truck driving. It's truck driving in a box van with no rules attached to it. So it's just like driving a car. Let me move over here and try to get over to the not fast lane. Yeah, I'm getting bumped around here. And this woman came out, and she was Amish, and I said, hey, this is great, can I film this? And she said, absolutely, just, wait till I'm not here. I don't like to be on camera. I said, cool, so she walked off. So somewhere in my playlist is a video of it, this stand, and they were selling maple syrup in these cool little glass containers. It didn't have a barcode on it. It just said the name of the farm and maple syrup, and I bought 2 of them. And there's, again, a cash box, and I just stick money in the little cash box. I've been by there twice. The first time it was on a fluke, and the second time I'm driving down this little secondary road looking around going, I recognize this area. I was actually talking to my wife, and I had her the camera on so she could see the terrain, and I jumped out and showed her what I was looking at. She's, oh, get that, and oh, get that, and get some of that. It was great. Me too. I would. Yeah, this job it's relaxing. If you want to stick your toe in this and try it out, contact a company, an expediting company, and say you're interested in becoming a fleet driver. That means you're driving somebody else's van, and there's people that buy like 5 vans, and they'll hire 5 different drivers. And living on the northeast part of the country, somewhere from, let's say, Iowa to the east, and let's say Tennessee up, I mean, that's kind of the prime area to be in. And you're driving somebody's van, and how it works is the person owns the van, pays for the maintenance, and puts tires on it and the insurance, and then the driver, and this is how I understand it, I've never done it, but the driver splits the load with the owner. And I don't know what what the split rate is, but that's kind of how that works out. You're splitting it with the owner, and it's a percentage. And again, it's a moving target. You do have to work that out with them. But they provide the vehicle. You come out here, and there's people that have done this job, that love it and do it for years and years and years. And then there are people that go out and buy a van, a very expensive van. Yeah, there's some wet moisture on the road. Okay, here's an example. There's a guy on YouTube, a young kid in his early 20s, which this job really isn't for younger people. This is my opinion. This is more for post-career people like me. This kid was in his early 20s. He bought a brand new Mercedes Sprinter van. It was brown. And it's one of those super long ones that'll hold like 4 or 5 pallets. I think probably cost $75,000. And this kid buys this van. He spends another, God knows, $5,000 doing the inside, putting in a bunk and a TV and a heater and an air conditioner and a fridge. And he filmed it. He's showing, hey, here's what it looks like in here and all this great stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then he starts, from the very bottom, he starts talking about expediting and how this works and how the guy lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks, and he goes, I don't really like being out on the road. I don't think I want to do this. And if anybody wants to buy a van, no, you don't drop $80,000 into a career that you don't know you want to be into. I mean, that's silly. So he was trying to sell the van, and you buy a brand new vehicle, and you try to sell, you're going to lose your ass on it. So again, if you want to try this out, become a fleet driver. And if you enjoy it, go get a van. That's my recommendation. Basically, there's 3 different types of vans. Should I make, I forgot, free rental cars. I'm trying to read it. Look, I can't really watch the screen here. I'm sorry. But if anybody's asking questions, it seems like there's enough people on here that know what's going on. Could you answer for me? I'm looking out the windows right now. But basically, at this point, there's 3 kinds of vans, and people have asked about the Ford Transit Connect, which is the little bitty one, which would seem really convenient because it'll carry 1 pallet. I have never seen a Ford Transit, the little van, ever. I caught that one. Yes, they pay by the mile. And they'll mathematically figure out if it's a short load, they'll just pay you a flat rate. Like they'll say, okay, you're doing 129 miles, I'll just pay you a flat $250. They'll do something like that. That happens. How that works. But basically there's 3 kinds of vans in this business. There's the Ford Transit, which is what I have, the Dodge ProMaster, and the Mercedes Sprinter. All of them are generically called Sprinter vans. The 2 that I looked at was the Ford and the Dodge, and I like both of them for different reasons, but I can't drive the Dodge because of the way I'm built. I am 6'4", and I have a tall upper body, and when I sit in the Dodge, the steering wheel is not unlike a bus. The steering wheel's tilted, and the steering wheel, the shaft kind of goes between your legs, and when I sit in the, gotta slide over. When I sit in the van, move over, dude. Come on, man. Boy, ain't you a peach. And I can't reach the steering wheel because it's so far from me. It was an awkward sitting position. So I like the Ford. I just rolled 200,000 miles on this, and it runs wonderfully. It doesn't burn oil, doesn't leak oil. I very much like it. I've had to spend. Yeah, that jackass came up behind me, and I'm trying to move over because the lane disappeared, and he's going like 75, 80 miles an hour, and decides he's got to get around me and push me out of the lane so he can cut in front of me, versus, just get in behind me, which made more sense. And so that's the difference between the Dodge. There are some things about the Dodge I like, I just don't fit in it for long term. And the Mercedes, I don't know anything about the Mercedes. It's not better, it's not worse. It's just everything about it is more expensive if you think about it. If you buy a Mercedes vehicle of any type, just because it's got the letter M on it, the parts are going to cost 4 times as much. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. Now, if you're a fleet driver, it doesn't matter. You drive whatever the owner gives you to drive, and you're fine. You don't have to worry about it. But if you're spending your own money, the Dodge seems to be a good van, and I very much like the Ford. I have these come in a low, medium, and high roof. I have a medium van, medium roof. The original one I did this with, I was flying helicopter tours up in the Grand Canyon when COVID hit, and at the time, 75% of our customers were from China, mainland China. So when COVID hit, everything just shut down and the whole tour industry just stopped. So I got into Expediting to hold down the fort, and I do own my van. A buddy of mine and I went together, and I bought the really big Transit, the super tall, super long one that's kind of awkward to drive, and I liked it. I liked the fact that I could stand up in it. That was nice. And as far as the Mercedes goes, I bet someone driving the exact same van I have right now, and she had 565,000 miles on it. Which, wow. But anyway, it had the tall Ford Transit. I liked it, but that space cost an extra $20,000, and it burned more gas because aerodynamically it was a barn door. And in the time I drove it, I think I did that for 15 months. I put 180,000 miles on it with no issues whatsoever. But I think I used all the space in the van twice. So for $20,000 and 3 or 4 miles per gallon less miles per gallon, it wasn't worth it. So when I bought this van, I bought the medium roof, still long, extended. And I've been very successful, I think, driving this. The low roof van you can do, but if you think about it, you're always bent over. You know, you're living in it, and you're always bent over, getting your clothes on and off. And I mean, that would get annoying after a while. But this load I just dropped off, they contracted me to carry 3 pallets, little bitty pallets that weigh a total of 2,000 pounds. And I showed up to pick it up, and it was 4 pallets at 2,500. And I went, now what? So I have to get on the phone and call my dispatch, and phone calls flew all over the place. The pallets literally said, do not stack. So anyway, they stacked up 2 of the pallets, and they threw all 4 of them in the back, and now I'm carrying 2,500 pounds, and I drove through that big storm they had. And I get down here, spent the night, and I'm pulling up, and one of the, now I know why they don't stack them, one of the pallets started kind of squishing into the one underneath it, and it kind of started to lean off to the side. It's not damaging anything, it's just machine parts. But it started to lay over to the side. It was crushing into it, and it was looking a little awkward, and the guy tried to pull it out, and it literally slipped to the side. I'm like, oh, jeez. And then he had to get this fancy tool to kind of drag it out. It was kind of a mess. Got no commitments. No, I got commitments. I got a beautiful, wonderful wife at home whose dingy as the day is long. But I've been a pilot my whole career, and flying keeps you away from the house. It's just the nature of the job, so I don't mind doing it. But again, some people don't handle this well. Being out on the road, it's like truck driving. You're away from the house. There's my friend that jumped from being independent to working for this company. He lives in South Carolina, and he's really active in his church. So he works in the core area, which is South Carolina. That's part of the area, and he kind of works it out where he ends up to be home on the weekends, so he can be with his church doing his thing with his family and whatnot, which is kind of cool. Let me get over here. Alrighty, back on the lane, not cut anybody off. Anyway, but yeah, it's how you work out your schedule. I code cross country skill, 18-wheelers. Yeah, a lot of people are doing that out here. Yeah, like I said, I can't really read the screen. I'm sorry, I can't really see it that well. But I got to keep my head outside. Not for everybody, but it's kind of relaxing. Back in the early 2000s, satellite radio was kind of the new thing. It's still out there, but Sirius and XM were competing, and now they've merged because there wasn't enough business for 2 companies doing that. But at the time, they were offering lifetime subscriptions for like $500. And then Sirius had a discount, and they were offering a lifetime subscription for $350, I think it was, and I bought one. And here I am 21 years later, I still have the lifetime subscription. It's in my wife's car, and I was able to load the app on my phone, and I Bluetooth that into my radio here. So now I have 2 satellite radio subscriptions, which is kind of the cheap way around it. So I listen to a lot of music, going down the roads, relaxing. I like YouTube, and a lot of the stuff on YouTube you don't actually watch, you just listen to it. You know, you just turn on and listen to people talk, and there's like maybe some pictures, but there's nothing that gets your attention, and I enjoy that. I've been doing YouTube since 22, and I started doing it because of this job. It was about expediting, and it was my van. The van I had a sticker. I named my van Lucy. I didn't give this one a name. It was called Expediting with Lucy. And then I got out of it, went back to flying, and I kind of didn't know what to do with the channel, so I switched it to 3 Legs In. And the title, 3 Legs In, comes from our cats. We have 2 cats that moved into our house of their own choice. And my wife ended up buying this fancy electric cat box where the cats go into a tube, they do their business, they come out, and like a minute later the machine slowly turns over and it kind of filters the sand, and it has a little hopper in it, and that's how it cleans itself. And we went from a traditional cat box to that. Well, as soon as we got that, the cats were like, oh, as soon as you do anything in the house, the cats got to go stick their nose in it. So the cats are over there looking at it like, what is this, what is this, what is this? So the one cat stuck its nose in, stuck its front half of its body into the tube, checking out the sand, and then pulled its 3rd leg into the box, and it was stretched out as far as it could possibly stretch, the hind leg touching the ground, kind of like a baseball player touching the base so you can't tag them. And it's like the cat's not quite committed, but trying to stay safe. Not fully committed, but 3 legs in, and that's where the name comes from. And I got a kick out of that. So that's where the name came from that. But I officially retired the tail end of 24 from aviation. I kind of lost my medical, which happens to guys in their 50s because they check your EKG. And my EKG is supposed to go buddy buddy bop, and it went buddy buddy beep. And they said, "Oh, you're out." Gee, thanks. 35 years of flying, and you're out. Thanks a bunch, pal. So that puts me here, and I'm going to keep doing this, I'm guessing, until I get to official retirement age. What lane you running? Oh, I'm in the right lane. I stay at everybody's way. Yeah, this is southeast. This is way down here in Lower Texas. Yeah, I came down here last night. The sunset was really interesting. Really interesting. Took a bunch of pictures of it. But we're shooting straight north, and we are on 281 right now. And again, if at some point this starts to interrupt or drop offline, I apologize. Coming down here, I had machine parts. It was a company, the north side of Milwaukee, and think of it as a giant washer, like a 5-inch diameter washer that had like teeth on it, and it kind of looked like the guts to a clutch or something. And I had 4 different pallets of this stuff, machine made. They have these big, I like industrial machinery, it cracks me up, but it was on a Friday, and they don't operate on Friday, just the shipping department, and nothing was running, so I couldn't watch them in operation. But they had all this, again, the pallets were tiny, they just weighed a bunch, and I brought those down here. Currently I'm empty. Well, the reason my profile picture looks like I was a pilot is because I was a pilot. I was a helicopter pilot for 35 years. I am now officially retired from that. And if you look at my profile picture, that is, because I have a watermelon head, that helmet was a specialty helmet that looks awkwardly large compared to a normal EMS flying helmet. And if you look closely at the picture, you'll notice there's a sticker on it, a dark helmet from Spaceballs. No, I'm not a flatbed, I'm a box van. Yeah, I'm just running in a van right now. I'm running into a headwind, which is kicking my gas mileage down a little bit. My big my last van, my big one, I drove that one once. Gets like 16, 17 on the highway. And I was running a load from Denver to Dallas. And out of Denver, you go on I-25 south through Colorado, up over the mountain range into New Mexico, into Raton, which is the bottom of the hill. And then you turn kind of south, I guess southeast bound, cutting cross country. And I had a monster tailwind. And I was getting ready to stop for the night, but if you get a monster tailwind, you don't stop. You work with it. And I was getting 25 miles per gallon, getting pushed across the state. It was wonderful. It wasn't snowing when I was there. Yes, I was in the military a long time ago. I'm one of the last guys that got to fly the old Cobra attack helicopter before they got retired. Those are no longer in service. At the time, when I was up in Milwaukee on Friday, there was snow on the ground. I got snowed on getting there from Michigan. And then on 94, Interstate 94, where I was, they had a big pileup. The roads were icy, really icy in Michigan. And then later that day, I saw they had a 100-vehicle pileup on 94 in Michigan. There's no pattern to that. Company vehicles usually have some kind of marking on them. And some people go out here and keep them blank. I don't really know the pattern. My van is marked, and some customers require you to have a marked van. They say your van needs to have, and then they'll say other things like you can't have any pets on board, because there's people who bring cats and dogs and stuff. Tag DMV, sometimes. Well, at this point, no, well, the 94, well, it might be, but the 94 I was on was in Michigan. It may go and may it continue in Wisconsin. But I was on 94, it's parallel to 90. I'm dodging the toll road, doing that. Again, I'm trying to read and drive here. No, that's the trick, is the max gross on this vehicle is 9,070 pounds. And anything under 10,000 pounds, they ignore. So, like I said, you drive along, you see a weigh station, blow by it. Drive along, you see one that says commercial vehicles. I blow by it. The only place I claim to be a commercial vehicle is coming up ahead here, which is the checkpoint. Yeah, I'll give you a road pirate story. I started driving this van in March, this last March, and I got caught in a cycle of driving this one evening. It was a business south of Toledo. It was manufacturing some kind of car part. I have no idea what it was. And they were running 3 shifts. There's a couple of vans sitting there. And as soon as they would finish a pallet, they throw it in the van and off you'd go up to Detroit. It was about 80, 90 miles. You drop it and turn around and drive back and wait for another one. It was just back and forth all night long. Goes from Wisconsin to Milwaukee. Okay. And back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I go down, I get a load, I drop it, I'm heading back. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I got the cruise set on 60. I'm in no hurry because I know they're not going to have a load ready for me when I get there. There's not a car within a mile of me, front or back. I'm all by myself on the highway. And you see this screen looking at you. If you look real close, you can just make out the hood of the van. Okay, just to the left of where you're looking, I see a mag wheel going left to right in front of me. And it cuts directly in front of my car, so it's underneath the headlight buckets, a car that is now sideways in front of me. It is so close to the front of my vehicle, I can see like 3 or 4 inches below the door handle. My collision alarm cannot even see it. And then the guy proceeds to turn the steering wheel to get closer to me. The back end of the car I think it was a Tempo, an old Ford Tempo. The back end kind of comes off the ground, and then the right rear wheel comes up into the headlight bucket, slides around the front and slams into the guardrail. And I'm looking, I was on cruise control. I didn't have time to touch the brake. It happened so fast. But rolled around the front of my van, slammed into the guardrail. And out of my left eye, I see another set of headlights magically appear in front of me. So this guy was trying to force a car accident for an insurance scam. And the other vehicle was the witness. The problem is, he managed to miss me. Now, it takes skill to wrap a car around another vehicle within, I don't know, a foot of the bumper. without hitting it. Usually one. Union tag. I don't know. What's my favorite chopper? Well, military. The only two military helicopters I ever flew was a Huey and a Cobra, and I really like the Cobra. In the civil world, I flew Jet Rangers, Bell Jet Ranger B3, the Long Ranger L1, 3, and 4, and one of the L4s our company had that I flew for used to be owned by Harrison Ford. So that particular helicopter is called the Millennium Falcon. I've flown the Bell 407 and the Eurocopter, AS-350, B, BA, B2, B3, B3E, and the Eurocopter EC-130. The EC-130 is very sexy looking. It's got a really good lines. It's got the enclosed tail rotor. It looks great. It's kind of a dog. I didn't like it. It was a dog. But of the civilian helicopters, I think the Bell 407 was my favorite. But the Cobra was my favorite all the way around. And the EC-130 looked cool. Had a big bubble front end. We had windows tinted out super dark, so it was a black helicopter with black windows. It looked really cool. And people would say, yeah, look, it was nutless. It didn't have a lot of zoom. I mean, it was fast, but the tail rotor was kind of weak because that enclosed fenestron system isn't very efficient. It looks great. It's quieter. It doesn't work very well. But I like that. And that aircraft had a glitch in the air conditioner, which is in the nose. And you'd be flying along and you'd get about 20 minutes of cold air, and all of a sudden the air would go, outside temperature. And if you would reduce power and honk back on the nose and bring the nose up, all this water would dump out of it. And then you lay the nose back over and you start flying again, and the air conditioner would work. Yeah, in this job, there's always work available, and it can be transient. There's people that get in and get out of this all the time. The Cobra was my favorite. Specifically, tail number 6715715, in case anybody's wondering, which was an AH-1F model, which if you put in if you Google the number 67-15715 Army helicopter, it'll actually tell you where it is today, which is mothballed in some warehouse somewhere. I think it's in Fort Drum, New York, last time I looked. But it was the year of manufacture was 1967. It was an original G model they used in Vietnam. I don't think Bell Helicopter even services them anymore, even the ones that they sold overseas. A few years ago they said, yeah, it's too old, we're not going to do that anymore, which kind of sucks. Yeah, we're out. Like I said, we're live streaming, which is cool. I'm just hoping this stays. If this cuts out, I may lose you abruptly because I don't know how this is going to play out. But somewhere up here is the checkpoint, and then the highway is going to branch off to the right. They just block the highway. And there's for commercial vehicles and then passenger vehicles. And I'm noticing I get less grief if I go. I notice I get less grief if I go through the commercial line. And they're going to say, are you a citizen? Usually that's the end of it. Sometimes they want to search the vehicle, which I tell them, no, because we're not crossing the border. You'll see it up here in a minute. There's a highway patrol right there. In the middle. Whoa, wind. That's my gas mileage. 17.5, not good. But we're driving into a headwind right now. Air geeks. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of areas. You get on some of these little side roads. It's just a 2-lane road, and the scrub bushes and the stuff come right up the side. And there's a lot of deer I noticed down here standing on the side of the road eating lunch. Little whitetails, little tiny ones. Yeah, I was an air cavalry guy. I joined the Army in '86. I got Bill Clinton out in '92 when they cut the military up. But I joined as enlisted scum, and I crewed the M1 tank. And then I used my Ninja Jedi skills and got into flight school in 1989. Which I believe 89-90 was like the biggest year ever for pilots. The most number of pilots, and maybe I slipped in under that because generally speaking I'm kind of an idiot, but I got in anyway and made it. When I was, I've mentioned this on here before, but when I was in Fort Carson, Colorado, which is Colorado Springs, the unit I was with, I don't even know if it exists anymore, but I was flipping through an Army training manual, and there was a section called the Army Astronaut Program, and I went, yeah, right. And I read this little page, and it said to qualify, you had to be at least a warrant officer, which is what I was. You needed to be a pilot, and you needed to be a certain age. And I read this. There's another Poco undercover on the left there, and it basically gave a list of qualifications. And I went, huh. And it said here, this is pre-internet, and it just said, yeah, you can apply if you meet these qualifications to NASA. And I went, okay. And I took that book over and flopped it down on the copier, made a copy of that page and filled it out, put it in an envelope with a stamp. Remember envelopes and stamps? And I mailed it in as a joke. And like a month later, I get this letter from NASA that has me doing an interview at the Air Force Academy, which is on the north side of town. And I'm going, yeah, okay. And I went and told the troop commander, I said, hey, I got an interview with NASA. And he's looking at me and he goes, yeah, but you're an idiot. I go, I don't know. I know, but they don't know that yet. So then I drove up the other side of town, and I went up to the front gate, and I had this piece of paper. I said, hey, I'm supposed to do an interview with NASA. And they go, oh, yeah, go up to building 432 or whatever. I'm, oh, okay. World's fastest interview. I walked in the room, and I had the letter, and I said, I'm here for an interview. She goes, oh, yeah. And she calls to somebody in the back, and the guy walks out of the back, and I hear him, yeah, what's the name? And I give my name. And he goes, okay. And he comes walking out, and he's holding like a little tiny binder, and he's opened in his hands, and he's looking down. He walks around the corner, he looks up, and he stops, and he goes, how tall are you? I said, 6'4". He goes, you're out. There's Highway Patrol right there. He goes, you're out. I went, well, that was quick. And he goes, yeah, they don't, the space suits, the pressure suits are only meant for people between 5 foot and 5'8", I think he said. And it was like, oh, okay. Because it costs like $1 million a copy, but 5 to 5'8", I think was maybe 5'10", but I think it was 5'8". I went, okay. And I have a watermelon head. That probably doesn't help. Yeah, being tall is fun until you try to get into a car or find clothes. And go, oh, well, I wish I was that tall. No, you don't. I don't fit in cockpits of certain aircraft. I have to bend over like a pretzel to get in and out of cars. I mean, it's a pain in the rear end. I drove they were shooting a video in Las Vegas when I was out there, and there was a 2017 convertible Corvette. They had that little hard top that pops off, and everybody was taking it for a drive. I don't even know why we had it. And I got in it, and my head was squarely above the windshield. I wasn't looking through the windshield. I was looking over the car. I rode in a Camaro once. I've driven a Lamborghini about 30 feet, and I was bent sideways. I was in a parking lot into a garage, and that ain't happening. Yeah, I used to work for a guy temporarily. He built show cars and classic cars and stuff like that. And it was a 67 Mustang, and I had to back it off a trailer, and it almost killed me. The seat doesn't move. The seat just flops forward and backwards and doesn't move, no headroom. I'm like, yeah, no. Another thing I like about this van, I got headroom in here. I don't know what's going on here. Look on the right. I like tearing people's stuff apart. Call it a flurry. I enjoyed my time in the Army. I would have stayed too. I would have retired in 2006. But yeah, that didn't happen. Alright, somewhere up is the checkpoint. We're probably getting close. Yeah, I'm 6'4". I'm cruising in the mid-270s. I can probably afford to lose about 30 of that. But yeah, and clothes. You get in the car, the first thing you look for is headroom. Can I get in here? And then there's vehicles, because of my sitting height, the rear view mirror blocks my view out the front. I'm trying to look through the mirror to see the road. It's kind of awkward. Okay, we are in South Texas, northbound on US 281 out of Hidalgo, and we are coming up on a inlet, whatever you call it, border patrol thing that causes problems. I've seen border patrol vehicles in Florida. What border exactly are you guarding in Florida? I've been a little curious about that. I know people in Alabama can be a little sketchy. Well, I tried to do my 20, but Bill Clinton said no. At the end of the Gulf War, he came in 92, and he cut the Army by 1/3. The Army has the same job. It's just they have 1/3 the personnel and assets. What are these guys doing pulling everybody over for? What border is in Minneapolis? Well, there is a border there. Technically, if you go north, you'll find one. It's just here, Florida, there's no border. I mean, yeah, like I said, people in Alabama are sketchy. Uh-oh, that's my noisemaker. The speed limit is 75 through here, and I am currently doing 63, which is about as fast as I push this thing for gas mileage reasons. Yeah, here we go. I know it's up here. I knew guys that were smugglers back in the 70s and 80s. Yes, Florida is. Every driver that does this job at my company, I'd never heard of this before, they have restrictions on what they're doing, and it'll say, some of these guys will say, I'll only drive in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Okay. Some guys say, I won't do a load over 100 miles. Some guys won't work on a weekend. I mean, it's really weird, which if you want to do that, that's fine, but you're going to really pigeonhole, where they can send you and how you're going to make money, because you're kind of narrowing down your opportunities. The only restriction I have in my file is don't send me to Florida. Mainly because you can't get out of Florida. There's nothing down there going anywhere. So I steer clear of that place. There's absolutely no cargo. I did meet a driver who lives in Juniper, Florida. I don't know where that is. And he's up in the Northeast driving where the core of our existence is the Northeast part of the country. And he drives around up there and then flies home. Flies home for a week or whatever, then flies back, gets back in his van. Yeah, in 22, the wife and I took a trip. We flew to Miami, rented a Mini Cooper convertible, and drove down to Key West. And hung around down there for 5-6 days. Did the snorkeling and did all the fancy fun restaurants and all the touristy stuff. It was kind of fun to drive. And came back, and there was one place on the side of the road. I did some research, and there was it's where you get to feed a tarpon, where you bend over the dock and you hold the food down. Another highway patrol. See this? That's what, the third or fourth one? And you bend over, and the tarpon will come up out of the water and snatch the fish out of your hand. And I knew where this place was, so when I went in, I bought the little bag of bait they give you. I had my wife, she goes, what's going to happen? I said, you just feed them. I said, they'll gently come up and take it out of your hand. Sucker. And she bent down, and that thing came up and went bang, and there's a video of it in here. I have a playlist called Vacation, and I videotaped her doing that, and she was laughing hysterically. And one time it actually caught her ring and almost yanked her ring off, which that would have been bad, but anyway. She was feeding us fish, and I was just laughing my ass off watching her get these fish would literally come out of the water and grab it from you. She started laughing, and she said, I have no words, and she was just laughing hysterically. But I rented the Turo car. It was a bright red Mini Cooper, and again, under my vacation playlist, it's back there quite a ways. I told her, yeah, I just rented us a car, and they were going to deliver it here. I didn't tell her what it was. And the car finally got delivered, and I had it parked. I put the top down, and I went and got her. We came down to the hotel, and I said, the car's right there. And she goes, okay, we're waiting on the car, which was a lie. And she goes, well, can we rent something like that next time? I said, well, let's go look. And then I hit the door locks. And she went, whoop, this is ours. And she got all excited. Jumped in and said, okay, let's go. And she had fun with that. Yeah, how long have we been married? Yeah, that question came up the other day, and I had to sit down and do the math. Okay, you ready? 39 and a half years. And we're both 57, and she's 6 days older. So I rub that in her face every chance I get, the old lady. All right. This, if you look at the terrain on the left and right, this is the sage. What's weird is this is green. If you look, it's green colored. Every other time I've been to Laredo or down south, this is always like a dead brown tan color. So this, or khaki, this is different. I've never seen the green color of this before. But you'll have deer all mixed in and around here. And on some of these secondary roads that I've taken home, was 5 days from Indiana and Key West. Yeah, people don't. Where am I driving? I'm going from the Texas-Mexico border, and I'm going back to the Houston area where I live. Yeah, that's the thing. Europeans don't understand how big the United States is. The state of Texas, if you were to cut it out and take it to Western Europe and drop it like a blanket, it would cover up Western Europe. And you can look that up. You can literally Google a Texas overlay of Western Europe. I mean, the storm coming down, I was getting real aggravated because it took 2 hours and 15 minutes for it to uncluster the situation to get me loaded. And I drove till I dropped, and I got right in front of it. And on the radar screen, I was in the storm, cutting through, I don't know what state I was in, Illinois, I guess. But it wasn't snowing. There was nothing there. Okay. And then I crossed the Arkansas border, no snow, pulled into a the welcome center / rest area. I got the potty break and I filled my water bottles. And then I came outside, it was snowing. And I drove to Memphis. It started to snow pretty good. I turned down 40 and I started falling asleep because I'd been awake at that point, I'd been up for 22 hours. I started getting tired, so I pulled off and slept for like 3 hours. The sun came up, I started driving again, and there was 3 or 4 inches of snow on the ground. So between Memphis and Little Rock is where I stopped for the night. And then I had to deal with ice conditions all the way to Texarkana, which took a long time because you only get to go like 35 miles an hour on the highway. And there weren't that many cars on the road. Just realized I have you on in 3 places. How is that even possible? You must have a lot of phones. Anyway, I run radar in my vehicle. I don't speed, but I like to know when people are around me. And then I got to Texarkana and turned south. And as soon as I turned south, the ice went away. I guess Texas doesn't allow ice on their roads or something. They don't use salt or anything. But the roads were clean. I mean, there was snow, but the roads were actually dry where your tires go. So that helped. I'm currently going 63. This is about as fast as I go on the highway in this thing, because above this, your gas mileage plummets, because these vans aren't exactly an aerodynamic wet dream. And I've had vans go blowing by me going 75, 80 miles an hour, and I'm like, you're not paying for your gas, are you? Yeah, I get passed all the time. I'm going to stand out. I kind of like to be unnoticed. And my entire life as just a regular driver, I never noticed this, but these Sprinter vans, these white cargo vans, are everywhere. It's like when you buy a car, all of a sudden you notice it everywhere, but these vans are everywhere. And if you look around and you see a white van, especially in the middle of the night, check out the license plate. It's not going to be from the state you're in. I'm in Texas, you'll see one go by, say, Massachusetts or South Carolina or something. They're always from out of state because they're doing the same job. This is that hurry up cargo. How, earphone, play phone, background. Wow, you stay busy. You stay busy. How, the concept behind Sprinter vans versus regular trucking is if you're a company selling a product, you want to get it shipped from East Coast to West Coast, let's say. Somebody puts on a board, and a sprinter or a local hotshot driver shows up, picks up your 1,000-pound load of whatever, and takes it to a shipping company, a trucking company, and it goes in their warehouse, and it's waiting for a full load. And then it gets on a big truck, drives across the United States at big truck speeds, gets unloaded in another warehouse, and it gets sorted out, and eventually a local hotshot driver picks it up and takes it. Oh, there's no snow, not down here. It rarely ever snows in South Texas. And delivers it to the end user. And what's the time frame on there? 4 or 5 days? I don't know. A Sprinter van will go directly to the manufacturer, pick up the load, and deliver it directly to the end user with no stopping in between. It's something they need right now, not next week. They need it now. And a couple of examples of that. Tags. My favorite drive in Germany. It's funny you should mention the Autobahn. I was playing Army in '87 as a tanker. I went to a reforger exercise, and whoa, this guy just lost his cooler. Look at this. Boom. Came to a sliding hole in the middle of the road. That was great, dude. And I got to go play with the German Army. Look at that. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 patrol cars for that guy. I got to go play with the German Army for a while, and there was a guy, he was a tanker, German tanker, and I don't know why I remember this, but his name was Michael Kurskowski. And he took me into town. We went to it's like a carnival going on, and he showed me around. We were just having fun, and he says, I mentioned the Autobahn, and we went to his house, and he was 19, I was 18 at the time. His parents had one of those Mercedes, kind of a stretched out Mercedes, and we got out on the Autobahn, and I didn't drive, that is road, and at the time, and I don't know how the rules work today, I'm just going by what it was back then, but you had 4 lanes where we were, and to translate it into American language, the right lane was for going 70, the next lane over was 110, the third lane was the passing lane for the 110, and the left lane was don't get in the left lane. And we got out on the Autobahn in this Mercedes, and he got in the third lane, and he limited the car out, and it turned out we were going 155, and he was holding it. And then the big difference I noticed between Germans and Americans is Americans talk, eat, play with the radio, finger fornicate their phones. They're always doing something in the car. Germans drive. They hold the steering wheel with 2 hands, stare straight ahead, and they don't talk. You cannot really engage them in conversation. And we're going 155 miles an hour, and there are cars blowing past us in the left lane. And he told me that if you get in the left lane and flip on your left turn signal and leave it on, that is code for I'm going for it. And they will flash their headlights, and the laws back then, I don't know what they are now, but back then, if you went through there and you were in the absolute show-off lane and somebody flashed their headlights and you didn't move, they would crash into you and you would be ticketed for being a dumbass and being in the show-off lane. Again, I don't know the rules now. He said they are deathly serious. What's that say? They have expired in helicopters too. What do you mean? What expired in helicopters? I don't do that anymore, but what about, I don't understand what you're talking about. A shot of water here. $35 degrees. Heat wave. Mileage 17.2. Expeditors. What? I don't even know what that means. Alrighty. I'm at a half tank of fuel. I didn't notice Encino. I didn't notice prices being good or prices being bad anywhere down here. It's all about the same, which is about $220, $230. Right by where I live, north of Houston, I noticed Australia. Hey there from Australia. We just left, it's been an hour, left the Mexican border in Hidalgo, headed north, going towards, working my way cross country back to Houston to go out of service here for a week-ish. I've got some VA stuff I got to do, and I got to do taxes and all that stuff. And whereas some wives have a 42, where some wives have a honey-do list, my wife gives me my itinerary. A little bit busier than a honey-do list. So we got a bunch of errands to run and whatnot. I'm hoping, I thought we'd be at the checkpoint by now, but apparently not. So give me a few more minutes here. Yeah, I'm really feeling this headwind. 17.2. Flash the trucker. There we go. Yeah, but like I said, this is an easy job to do. You know, you just kind of get into the routine, and then you start learning what is and what isn't. And as an independent contractor, like I said, if you want to take time off, you take time off. You don't have to ask permission. You don't have to talk to HR because we don't have one. And everything's over the phone. Expediting a helicopter? Well, technically, yeah, but the price of running a helicopter is catastrophic. And I've had people ask me that question. Well, why don't you buy a helicopter? I couldn't afford a helicopter if somebody gave it to me. I mean, yeah. 20 years ago, when I was flying out in the Gulf, I was flying a 407, which is a really nice aircraft, 2.2 million or something. The monthly rate we charged the customer for that helicopter to have it nonstop was, I believe, this is 20 years ago, $70,000 a month and $800 an hour flight time. That's just, yeah. Helicopters are just massively expensive to operate. This is the nature of the machinery. Oh, when you're coming through here at night, it is dark, 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 dark out here. There's no lights, there's nothing, you can't see, it's just you and your headlights. And that's one of the things I really appreciate about the Ford Transit. It has these big old, massive bucket headlights. Massive buckets. Yeah, I saw a video some guy posted talking about helicopters, and it was like, and action, and this guy was standing on a dolly. A helicopter dolly is like a box with wheels, and you land the helicopter on it, and they hook it, the dolly to a tug, and they pull it into a hangar. And it was a helicopter, a little jet ranger, a little tiny helicopter sitting on a dolly with the blades tied down. And I guess the guy said, and action, and this guy picked up his bag, which was laying next to the aircraft, and he started walking off the ramp, and he goes, yeah, I've been doing a lot of traveling lately. And then that was like the end of the video. I said, ooh, aren't you cool? You went to an airport, found a tied down cold aircraft, threw a bag next to it, picked the bag up, and walked away from it like you were some VIP traveler. Ain't you cool? That was a Border Patrol vehicle cruising that little dirt road. What happens are people, I don't know now, but people would sneak across the border and they go up through all this sagebrush here, but we're pretty far from the border at this point, and then meet somebody and jump over the fence and get a ride. I guess that's how they were doing it, because there's a well-worn dirt road there to the side on that fence line. That's the first time I've actually seen a vehicle on it. I have gone northwest out of Laredo, and I'm cutting cross country on a 2-lane road, which I really enjoy driving on. In the middle of nowhere, and I come around a corner, and there's a woman sitting in the shade of one of these bushes. A little short, pudgy Mexican woman sitting in the shade, looking at her lap as I went by. Well, yeah, if you're living in Monte Carlo, yeah, you can afford to have those kind of toys. I'm just saying they're pricey. They're pricey to fly, pricey to own. They eat up parts and stuff. Well, that's a blue color right there. All right, contrabando. Smuggling illegal aliens is a federal crime. You don't say. We got signs. Yeah, this is super dark up here at night. Yeah, here comes the checkpoint. Yep, I start warning you. Inspection stations, trucks, buses, RVs, 1 mile. Here we go. Like I said, I found out going through the commercial side, they leave you alone a little more. I do know guys that were smugglers. They used aircraft in the 70s, and the guy said he would turn his lights off, and then at the actual border, they would fly across the border super low directly over the checkpoint and flip their landing lights on, all their position lights, and then turn them back off again. Oh, this is a long way from Connecticut. Okay, hold on. Looking out the windows, nothing. All trucks, buses, RVs, next right. I am not going through that one. Yep, we drive a Veyron. I don't know what that means. Okay, hold on a second here. Trucks and buses use right lane. All passenger vehicles next right. See, this is how I'm using this lane. Did they leave that wide open? No, they didn't. Like I said, I consider myself a truck. Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, they blocked the whole highway. I thought it was going through all the way. And depending on how long they hold you here, how fast the line's going tells you what's going on. Okay, they got one lane open. That's not well thought out. And the noisemaker is back on again. Yeah, this is a little slower than last time I went through. Bugatti, yeah. It was like there was a Bugatti supercar, and it had a 31-gallon tank, and they said, oh, this car will go this certain speed. It would drain the fuel tank in like 8 minutes if you ran it at that speed. Okay. Are they opening more lanes? Or just this one? Yeah, so they run the dog around, and if they want to do a quick illegal search of your vehicle, all they have to say is, oh yeah, my dog hit on your vehicle. Whether or not it did, they can hold up a photograph of a dog if they wanted to. They got cameras, but it's designed for taller vehicles here. So they're looking up higher. And here's my favorite part of this whole trip. Howdy.
Anybody else in the back?
Nope.
Where are you headed today?
Houston?
I'm sorry?
Houston.
Houston. Give me a second.
Stop doing that. So now they're walking around trying to convince themselves I'm up to something.
You have a good day.
Take off. That was probably the friendliest I've ever been at a checkpoint. Yes, I agree with the eye-watering insurance comment. Here's on the left. This is all the places where they pull you in and pull your vehicle apart. I think one thing that gets me from my vehicle being torn apart is I have an Air Cavalry sticker and a Cobra helicopter sticker and a couple of things on my back window that may play into it. All right, here we go. Wait for Skippy. Okay, that was the big checkpoint. That was the big highlight of this drive. We'll be right from Russia, Siberia. Wow. Yeah, they discovered huge oil reserves in Siberia in 1965, and that kind of saved the entire Soviet economy back then because their infrastructure was kind of falling apart. And the problem is when they found oil, it paid all their bills, and then they just sold oil, and never spent any money fixing the infrastructure. So in the early 80s, when oil prices dropped, kind of left the Soviet Union blowing in the wind. Yeah. Don't tell anybody I'm hauling bowling balls. I did a load somewhere on the East Coast. This guy's gonna keep speeding. And I went to Oregon, and it's hard to get a load out of Oregon. And we got contacted by a company that wanted me to carry 1 ton of marijuana back to Colorado, where it's legal in Colorado, it's legal in Oregon. It's not legal between the two, it's a problem. And I said, yeah, that's gonna be a hard no. Oh, wow, really? Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm not a monetized channel, and if I keep going like this, I might turn into one. But I just do this because it helps pass the time, and I think people tune in just to see what I see every day, different parts of the country, because I've been surprised by some of the places I've been to. Shockingly beautiful that you don't really think about. And I take all these back roads. You get into the smoke, they call it the Smoky Mountains over there on the East Coast. And I was like, the name never really meant anything. And then one day I'm going on a 2-lane road through one of these parks, and you look out, the sun's setting, and it looks like somebody had a campfire going in a valley, and there's this light smoky haze. And I stopped and stared at it. And there was a park guy, one of the park rangers. I said, is that where that comes from? He goes, yeah, that's just a natural phenomenon. It looks that way. So it kind of started making sense. And I like little things like that. Front with the Americans covering the rear. Yeah, so that's just little things like that. It entertained me. I've done Houston to North Dakota. Did a load up there. It was the middle of the heat of the summer, blistering, death warmed over, and I drove to North Dakota, woke up in the morning, got out of my van in my boxer shorts, and I was dancing because it was 41 degrees. Which was awesome. I carried looks like a toolbox. Yeah, that'd be a drive. One of the more weirdest experiences I ever had out here on the road, I went to Bath, Pennsylvania. And I had a load that, I don't remember what it was, but it was due at 7 in the morning, and I got into town at 2. And a lot of times if you get there, just go see if you can drop it off. So I pull up at like 2:15 in the morning at this business with this big fence around it, and I push the button, to see if anybody answers. And surprise, surprise, a female voice answers and says, yes, may I help you? And I was like, whoa. And I said, yeah, I've got a drop, it's supposed to be here at 7. And she said, okay, come in and drive around back. I'm like, cool. Open the gate, I drive in. You go by this big, illustrious open area, the entrance area. And I look in there, and the entrance is lit up like a Christmas tree, and there's this, about 30 feet from me is this rather attractive woman sitting behind a desk. You just see her from like the neck up. She's looking at me, I go by, I'm like, wow. I drive around back, and I pull up to the ramp, and I wait, nothing happens. There's no bell or buzzer. I'm there about 10, 15 minutes. I walk around front, and there's a little push button on the door, a little call box. And I pushed the button, and I said, hey, did you let him know I was here? And she's 25 feet from me. And she goes, oh, I'm sorry, I'll call him right now. I said, thank you. Went back around, I waited, the door opens. Guy comes out, he grabs this big, it's like a job box, he grabs it out. And I said, how come you have somebody working the desk, at 2:15 in the morning? And the guy stopped in mid-movement and looks at me and said, did you talk to her? And I was like, yes. And he goes, come here. And he's got one of those little tags on a retractable cable on his waist. He walks over, he swipes, opens a few doors, walks into the front area where she's sitting, and she's behind a desk, short blonde hair, blue dress, hands crossed, sitting on the desk. There is nothing on the desk. Walk around and look down, it's a freaking robot. And she's looking right at me, and I move, and her head and her eyes follow me, and she blinks, and she smiles. And I went, you have got to be kidding me. And he goes, and she's also a super Alexa. You know, you want to look up a quarterly report or some numbers, ask that person has the answer. I said, really? I said, okay. What was the lineup of the team players in the 1936 World Series? And this woman thing, looking me in the eye, started rattling off names and stats. And I said, okay, I'm out of here. And I left my phone in the van, didn't get a picture of it. He's got to drive really fast. That was probably the freakiest thing I ever saw out here on the road. I actually have stickers on my van. I delivered a box that I had to plug into my 12 volt to keep it powered. I don't know what I was powering. A light bulb, an air conditioner, I don't know what it was, but I took it to Groom Lake Air Force Base. Groom Lake Air Force Base. Why are they building all those huge buildings? Yeah, I don't know. And Groom Lake Air Force Base is also known as Area 51. And I picked up a load, Pennsylvania maybe? I don't remember. Drove to Nevada, followed the GPS down these roads, and ended up in one of those do not pass here, will kill you things. And I said, I have a delivery. And they inspected my vehicle. They stuck cameras and mirrors underneath it and all this crazy stuff. Yeah, people do that a lot. And they put an escort vehicle in front of me and behind me, and I drove into the base. There's nothing there of interest. They drove me into a hangar, and the two vehicles stopped. The guy got out, and he said, drive in there, and I drove, and I opened the back, and they came over the forklift and disconnected the power and replugged it in. And the guy, I, of course, being who I am, jumped out with my camera in my hand, and I started waving my camera around my phone. I said, where's the aliens? Where's the aliens? And they didn't seem to appreciate that joke. But I did it because I can't resist. And I looked around, where's the aliens? Where's the aliens? Put that away, I'm fine. And I dropped it off, signed off, and I went out. I literally have stickers on the side of my van, Groom Lake Air Force Base. Entrance stickers are on both sides. They expired 25, but I have them. All right, we're, like I said, we're in the middle of nowhere, and at some point, we're going to lose reception, I think. Surprisingly, this hasn't dropped off one time during this drive, and I'm actually kind of impressed with this. So yesterday, commercial vehicles bypass. Yesterday, I went from north outside of Houston through Houston down here with no cars on the road, none. Really freaky. And as I'm getting back into Houston later on today, I'll probably try to live stream again and see what happens going the other way, which is probably going to be the usual nightmare. It says bypass the inspection station, yet there's people there. That doesn't make sense. He's not taking pictures. Alrighty. Woo. Where do you sleep? I have a bunk in here. I have a bunk in the back. It's I kind of when I left here, I kind of made a mess in here, but I'm going to show you something. Let's spin this around. Right there is my bunk. I got all my gear thrown on it because I was downloading the cargo, and that will fold up to where it's almost touching the back of my head for tall loads. But all my gear has been tossed up on it. Whoa! We're back. Here we are. Alrighty. So we built it up high. I can get a 31-inch pallet underneath it, and ironically, this load I had on, 32 inches, I think, clearance with the bunk down. That last the smallest pallet of the four was like 28 inches. So I was able to slide it underneath and use my bunk. And that's why I don't have it built lower to the ground. And yes, I have to get a running lead. Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've been there many times. I like Grand Rapids. That's where I discovered Noodles and Company, that restaurant, which I really, really like. And when I was spending some you don't want to put two people in this vehicle. Texas-Mexico border, I'm going home. North side of Houston is my current destination. In Grand Rapids, you go northwest towards the water, and there's that really cool lighthouse up there where that channel opens up. You've got snow, I believe it. I like that area though. Grand Rapids, I was really impressed. It's kind of modern, clean. People take care of it up there. I go to places that are dumps, absolute dumps. But Grand Rapids is a nice area. And that Noodles and Company restaurant, whew, that's my favorite. We don't have those down here. Well, lighthouses aren't as necessary as they used to be. They're more, artistic these days. But it was an old lighthouse from God knows how far back. Now it's kind of a museum. But it's really cool to walk around in. I like looking at history like that. What do I transport? Whatever they put in here, more times than not, it's car parts. That's the mainstay. And from there, it's weird things. This is a little manufacturing company about 10 miles north of Milwaukee. And they gave me metal machine parts. It's stuff you could probably buy from China, but China's mixtures of metal can be cheaper. They're not really good quality. And I think that may have played into them ordering this, but it was some kind of machine parts. There were little pallets that just weighed a bunch. Me? Stressed? Nah. I'm kind of an amped up individual. It's the way I operate. Some people slow talk, I fast talk, sorry. It's my personality. I've carried weird stuff, like Area 51, unknown. The place with the robot, unknown. I've carried 55-gallon drums of oil. I've carried medical supplies, or they tell me I have to have heat to get to the back of the van because whatever it was, it couldn't freeze. They wanted to confirm there wasn't a wall between me and the back. I've carried cooking. It was cooking oil. It was like a spice-oriented cooking oil for some company, organic, whatnot. There's a company in Indiana. On 2 occasions I've been there, and they build those little tiny water parks for little kids to play in. And they have like big, very colorful ceramic fish and scuba divers and aquatic life. And I picked up the fish. We have a 6-foot fiberglass dolphin and a guy in a dive suit and stuff like that. I've carried a lot of that. It's just weird items. San Marcos. I know one guy that lives in San Marcos. One guy. So my next turn looks like it's 22 miles up this road. At least the sun is in our face. This is straight north on 281. That's my mileage now. 70, yeah, I'm losing mileage. Again, we're driving straight into a headwind. This kind of sucks. I have nothing to do about it. Hazmat? No, we're not able to haul hazardous material. I've carried some batteries and stuff like that, but anything that's formally because of the quantity, I've never done hazmat. Have I ever been to Jerusalem? No. No, I've never been to Jerusalem. I don't know why this someone was mad at me a long time ago, and they said, well, you're anti-Semitic. I said, don't tell my Jewish wife. That's going to be an awkward conversation. No, see, that's the advantage about time. You see, when you're not operating under a CDL, I'm under 10,000 pounds. I drive by the same rules that you would drive under in your car. I mean, literally, it's like driving your car. I can drive for 20 hours if I want. 30 hours, whatever you feel good with. I don't have logbooks. I don't go through weigh stations. I don't go through commercial vehicle checkpoints. DOT completely ignores this kind of work. I did the math the other day. Between my 2 vans, as of this week, I've driven 280,000 miles, and I've never been pulled over for anything. I've never been stopped. I've never been inspected. Shabbat. My wife did that. That word Shabbat. Yeah, she's done that. She's talked about that to me. We don't do a whole lot of church stuff these days, but she did mention that. Knock on wood, yeah. All right, hey, well, thank you. 3 legs in, named after the cat. When I come out here for a few weeks and I go home, the cats look at me like, who are you? When I come in the house. They get kind of like, I don't recognize you. We live in a 2-story townhouse, and we cut a little tiny hole in the wall down low and put a cat door in, and that goes through a little tube into what's called a catio, which is like an enclosed outdoor area, caged in area, so the cats can go outside, but nothing can get in and nothing can eat them when they're out there. And she bought a cat condo, which is a decorative little house. It's for a random cat, because we feed a cat that lives in our complex, or a couple of them, I don't know how many we have now. And it's a little building for cats to go in to get out of the weather. And as soon as we put that out, one of those cats was in it here when the weather got cold. I try to answer questions. At certain times I can't look down and read it. Right now I'm pretty open for it. I have dry and little tiny cans of wet cat food in the back of my van in a mold. And I feed cats at rest areas and truck stops. And a couple of years ago, there was quite a few. Nowadays, for some reason, there's less of them, but I have been feeding them, and I videotape them. And cats, they're real sketchy. They don't like people, these ones there. But I tell you what, they get a little friendlier when the food comes out. And I was at a one here a while back, and there was a cat on the other side of a chain link fence, and there was a lizard on this side of the chain link fence. And the cat was reaching through, clawing at the lizard and couldn't reach it, and then pulled his arm in and ran around the end of the fence, came out and jumped on it and literally ate the lizard. I've never seen a cat do that before, but ate the lizard. And while it was doing that, I was getting it food, and I poured some out in a little pile, and it came over and inhaled that. Rocket, she does rumble, that's cool. That raccoon, that's cool. I wanted one as a kid. Ricky Raccoon. Yeah, sometimes when these questions start scrolling really fast, it's hard for me to keep up. At least the lighting is good and I can see it right now, because sometimes I can't see it. Whoa! So this is northbound US 281, driving away from the Mexican border. We're probably 70, 80 miles away. And this area out here, this whole part of Texas looks like this. People own big chunks of real estate, big ranch land. Somewhere out here is King Ranch. It's supposed to be the biggest ranch in all of Texas. It's somewhere in this area. It's a zillion acres. I'm driving Hidalgo, going north. I'm working my way back over by Houston, which is home for me, and I'm going to be going out of service here for about a week. Yeah, actually I am. I'm fairly conservative. There's this old saying that if you're not a liberal when you're 20, you don't have a heart, but if you're not a conservative by the time you're 40, you don't have a brain. And I kind of believe that. And the thing that I like about Trump is when a politician wants to do something, they wake up one day and say, I want this, I want that. They'll have one of their interns write up a memo to pass out to all of his buddies, and his buddies will say, yeah, that's a great idea, let's do this. And then they'll try to get something in front of a vote, and then they'll try to find financing for it, and they'll try to find this, and and then try to make it happen. Why is this road splitting here? Okay. And then they try to work to get that whatever thing or bill passed. Trump's a businessman, and he's going into a political world with a businessman mindset, and it's like negotiating. If you want this, you ask for that, and then negotiate your way down to this, and then that's how you get what you want. And that's how he does business. So he's compromising, but what he's compromising for is what he wants in the first place. Like this whole Greenland thing he's talking about, and that's how he does that's how he does business. And I don't think he wants Greenland. What he's trying to do is force NATO to send a little bit of money on military preparation to prep the area for future problems. Pick up hitchhikers? No. Well, they talk about, people say, you think he's a good businessman? Well, he is a multi-billionaire. And they say, well, he's bankrupted 4 businesses. Most people try business once, and most people fail. This is years ago, he's literally had more than 1,000 businesses that he's started and bought and sold and done things. I think 6 of them went under, and when they bankrupt, it has to do with the market changing. I think it's more the interest. It's not that you didn't know what you were doing. It's the world. Look at Atlantic City. Atlantic City used to be this big booming happening place, and now Atlantic City's dead. You have a big hotel in Atlantic City, you're pretty much screwed because nobody goes there anymore. You have a 1,000-room hotel in a town that nobody goes to. You're going to bankrupt that business. It's happening in San Francisco right now. There are big hotel chains in San Francisco, big high-dollar fancy hotel chains that they stop paying the loan, the owners, because it's not worth it, because the violence and the crime and all the problems they're having, that there's no customers. It's just the world changes, and that's sometimes how businesses fail. Is just the market moves. There were probably people making a bunch of money selling COVID masks. Well, you know what? You're not selling those anymore. So if you invested all your money into COVID mask sales and you've got a warehouse with 10 million masks, you're not selling them. You bankrupt it, you pull your money out, you call it macaroni. That's kind of how that works. But most people that start a business, it fails. That's just, but I don't own a business. Well, technically, I own a business. Right now, technically, I am a business owner, which is this. And it's just a van. I'm not overly extended. My van, my expenses are my insurance. This van's paid for. So I don't have a van note, or I don't have a house note, a van note, a car payment, or anything like that. So it's kind of like a low-risk business. I have been to, New York City is broken into different sections and boroughs. The only time in the last 40 years I've been to New York City was Lower Manhattan. That's because I did the Cannonball Run, and it starts in Lower Manhattan. And physically, I don't know where Brooklyn is in reference to Manhattan. So the answer is I don't know. I don't know. I know when I was doing this last time under the Biden administration, I know the cargo got thin and the gas prices went way, way, way up, and it kind of made the job unprofitable when you're spending all your money on fuel. Yeah, we were hitting $5 a gallon for fuel. I think I was in Michigan, and I did my one run to California with $6.99, and by my house I saw gas coming in Friday night for $2.02. So, yeah, in my line of work, it makes a big difference. The snow. What? Mandani? Probably not. Yeah, the whole thing, if you stand back and look at socialism, it's based on OPM, which is other people's money. The problem is you eventually run out of other people's money. And then what do? It usually starts off strong, and then it eventually works its way down to where there's nothing left and everybody's looking at each other and they don't know what to do, because over here you have the movers and the shakers that make money, and then over there you have the sit on your mom's couch and play video games crowd. And the movers and the shakers are many, and the people doing nothing are usually few. But that group gets bigger and bigger and bigger when the movers and the shakers realize, what's the point of working hard and being successful and making money and employing people when I don't get to keep my money for doing it? So they stop and they join the guys on the couch. And eventually you have a bunch of people sitting on the couch. Well, the secret police have been in this country for generations. So, you know, what are you going to do? Yeah, politics is a tricky time. Look at that. I've owned 5 Volkswagen Bugs, and 3 of them look like that. They were red. That's a new trunk lid. It doesn't match. That's the newer body style. The last year of the Bug was 2019. They make the Volkswagen van, the high-style stuff, the Volkswagen bus they make. It's called the ID, and they're all electric. And they sold a handful of them, and then they stopped making them because they're letting the current inventory deplete. Because people don't like, in this country, really don't like electric vehicles. Because Europe sees the world through the eyes of Europe, which is, again, the state of Texas, if it was a blanket, would cover Western Europe. They don't understand how much real estate we have out here. And you're driving down this road right here, and you start running out of juice. You know, you start running out of juice, you got some problems. So if they would build that ID van with a turbo 4 or that really awesome 5-cylinder they make, I would buy one. But I guess Volkswagen is dedicated to making electric, which fine, but you're going to lose. You know, you're going to lose your ass on it. You got to realize your market's bigger than that. There's apparently people having a conversation on here, but I don't recognize what it is. You know, there was a time in the year 2000 that Venezuela was the rockinest, financially rockinest country in South America. And then a socialist came in and said, "We look at all this money, I'm going to make it better." And he started throwing in socialist policies, which completely destroyed their economy. And they confiscated firearms. When a government confiscates your firearms, that's usually a good sign they're about to do something you would shoot them for. And they completely wrecked their economy. Well, now the whole system's flipped upside down since they pulled that guy out. So let's see what happens in the aftermath. And when they start talking gun confiscation, it's a beautiful day out here, not a cloud in the sky. Whoa. Anybody got any questions about anything, expediting topics? There is I have a lot of free time out here, and I started digging around and stuff. There's a church in Santa Fe, New Mexico in the 1870s, a very small church. And they built a loft back behind the congregation. And then when they were done, they realized there was no way to get up there minus a ladder, and that's kind of awkward. So they tried to hire local carpenters. They said, "Hey, can you give us, build something that'll give us access and to the second floor?" None of the local carpenters were like, "Yeah, look, it's just too weird of a situation. I can't really work it." And about that time, a guy came wandering into town with his toolbox and said, "Hey, I'm a carpenter looking for work." And they said, "Okay." They showed me, because I can do it. There's 2 rules. I don't like anybody watching me work, and when I'm done, you'll see it. And he said, "Okay." And the guy went into the church and closed the doors. And he was in there for a while, and they never saw the guy again. He was just in there. They saw lights on at night, lantern lights. And you can look this up. It's called the Loretta Church. It's the circular stairwell, the circular stairs, Loretta Church, it's Santa Fe, New Mexico. Feel free to look that up, a picture of it. And guy opened the doors, and the people that owned it walked in, and they made a wooden circular stairwell with no center post. You know, you buy circle stairs today, there's a pipe and the stairs attached to the pipe. There was no pipe. There's just a big hole in the middle. And these stairs go a couple of, like a 360, two 360s, and land on the top. There's no handrail. There's no center post. It's a free-floating stairwell. It's like taking a slinky and just standing it upright and pulling on it a little bit. It has no nails in it. It was put together like a puzzle. It's been there since 1870. And it's an absolute masterpiece of work. And here's the strangest part. The guy disappeared after it was built. They never paid him. He just went poof, gone. So they said, well, we need to go, talk to the local sawmill, at least pay the bill for the wood. They went to the sawmill. They said, that guy never came in here. They looked at the wood. They didn't recognize it. The wood has, in the last few years, they tested it. It's kind of like the DNA. The wood comes from Eastern Europe, almost into Siberia. How does Siberian wood end up in Santa Fe, New Mexico? And if you look that up, you'll see a picture of it. They added handrails to it years later, but it's just this swirling wood masterpiece of wood, and they to this day don't know who built it. You're waiting to be the 1,000th like? Oh. It currently shows 99. Yeah, look the picture up. It is just, to stare at it is fascinating. But, with computers and stuff, I can see how you might be able to build that. But this guy did it by hand in 1870. And it's just, you look at it, you go, wow. And it's just got this hole. Down the middle of the stairs, it's like you could drop a basketball through that hole. I am stunned that this stream is still working, because it's been on 104, 100, yeah, my says 103 on my end. That's cool. Yeah, but see, we're out here. We've been driving for, I don't know how long, almost 2 hours, and this hasn't changed much. Ooh, cell tower. That's good. But you have hogs that live in this shrub brush. I don't know if I'll turn it here off to the side. This shrub, that stuff, some of that's maybe 15 feet tall, but most of it's probably 6-7 feet tall. And you have all kinds of weird stuff running around out in there. Deer and hogs, and of course rabbits and turtles. On the back roads, I've seen turtles crossing the road, and I always stop for turtles. Currently, we are in Texas. Can you hear me now? No, actually, I'm on 281, and I'm getting ready to make a turn on 41. We're going through I think this is a little tiny town, I think. But we're getting ready to make a turn, so everybody hang on. That was like a premonition. But yeah, I got a half mile from the turn here. Yeah, there's a few of them. Like I said, I'm stunned that this live stream is still live streaming, because I was having conversational problems last night. So here's our big turn towards Kingville. So we're going to turn on 41. And again, I don't know where I am on the map right now. Okay, kicking the cruise. That's right. Yeah, ultra flat. West Texas they call it the hill country, and it's rolling hills and a lot of rock formations. It's kind of decorative, kind of enjoyable to look at. Let's see here. 60. Yeah, this wind is. This wind's killing me. Why are those people sitting? Oh, that's parking. I thought they were at the stop sign. Turning on 41. All right, stop sign, California stop sign, which means you roll through it. Oh, this is new. Haven't been on this one before. Yeah, there's nothing out here in Texas and in certain areas. You cross the border on I-10 from Louisiana, and the sign says El Paso, 983 miles. So yeah, this is a large state. I drove from Hidalgo, Texas, which is within a few hundred yards of the Mexican border, a bit west of, my cruise off, west of Brownsville, and I'm going back to home, which is the north side of Houston. Yeah, Texas goes on forever. And Houston is the energy capital of the world. It's where all the big energy companies congregate. And if you look at the American power grid, you have the Eastern grid, the Western grid, and the Texas grid. They've got their own setup. And when I was flying EMS back and forth, I was flying out of Houston, Richmond, which is west side of Houston, and we did a run down to Victoria, and we flew over solar farms that went on forever. Solar panel farms. I mean, it's terrain like this. There's nothing out there. And there was so much of it going down. On the way back, I set up my phone and I recorded it. Just kind of turned the phone down and flew along. You can see it. It was mind-boggling. As far as the eye could see were solar panels. And I guess they pump that into the grids. And they have, I know along the coastline, there's one nuke reactor over there, because I've flown near that too. But this is the oil and gas industry in this area is humongous. In the Gulf, it's crazy how much stuff they have out there. And they've been running it since, I think, offshore. I think since the 1940s. They started in shallow waters. Then they worked their way out deeper and deeper and deeper. And then in the last 10 years or so, technology changed. And they were able to turn around and go back into shallow water, use this new technology, and find new veins of gas and oil and stuff. So now it's like they're starting over again. New construction, well, a new road. Oh yeah. I don't know. They're doing, this is being cleaned up. Yeah, it looks like they're building another lane over there. I don't know. I guess at some point they're anticipating more traffic out here in the middle of nowhere. You got to remember, the state of Texas actually has a budget surplus, whereas most states are sucking hind titty and just charging more and more taxes. Texas doesn't have an income tax, and one of the biggest ways they make money was property tax, and they've recently had to drop the property tax rate on everybody. And as of a couple of years ago, and I don't know what it is today, but they had a $45 billion tax surplus here in Texas. So they can afford to do construction and road maintenance and bridges because they have the money to do it. England, London, right on. Last time I was in London was 1981. I was 13 years old. Got to ride the trains, Victoria Station. One of the things about the trains that cracked me up, and I don't know if this is still in effect, but you're riding on a train and you go into the restroom, the bathroom, you open the toilet, look down, you see the railroad tracks going by. I went, okay. Well, that's an easy way to take care of business. What's this guy doing? Eventually here I'm going to have to stop and get gas. Of course, there's nowhere to stop and get gas. There was a woman living in Nevada in the middle of nowhere, and she came up with an idea. You know, everybody wants to have a side business to make money. And one of the best ways of doing that is look around where you live and find something that's available where you live that's not available somewhere else readily, and that's your product. And she's looking out her window and she discovered tumbleweeds. This woman makes bank selling tumbleweeds. Have you ever been on any of the musical highways? You mean the ones where you run over with your tire and it makes noises? Is that what you're referring to? Because in Louisiana, if you drive off the road, there's usually a rumble strip. But in Louisiana, I hit one that made funny little sounds. But I haven't been on one of those yet. I think you're talking about those ones where you slow down to a very specific speed and you run over the road and it plays a song. I've heard of them. I've never seen one. Never been on one. Somebody went by that. turns. Right on. Whoa. Open around. We are going straight east right now. I got someone getting ready to blow past me. Oh, they're New Mexico? I haven't been to New Mexico in a while. I used to fly. My first EMS job was in southeastern New Mexico in the town of Hobbs. Oh, that's cool. Kind of a neat idea. The Europeans and Germans did something where they painted the stripes with that fluorescent stuff, so when the sun goes down, the stripes glow for a while. I thought that was kind of cool. I don't know, she boxed them up and she was selling them. People would buy them. She just put them in a big old box and shipped them to people. She still does it. Some people in the Middle East, it's like you put them in your yard, it's like a status symbol. Trying to read and drive here. Yeah, it's just, she sells them. I may be mixing things together, but it seems like her name is the Pioneer Woman. And she does that. She just buys these big boxes and sells them overseas. And I'm like, that's insanity. But, you know, it's people put them in their yards. You live in Egypt and you have some tumbleweeds in your yard. People stop and go, where the hell did that come from? You know, how did you hunt? What? Oh, yeah, I got some tumbleweeds. It's a status symbol, I guess. At least they're doing construction. Oh, we are getting bounced all over the place. I always figured if in Louisiana they sell Louisiana hot sauce, and when I was playing Army to go overseas, it didn't matter who you bumped into, they were interested in that hot sauce. And the MREs, the little quickie meals they make, you can eat on the run. In there's a bottle of Tabasco sauce about the size of half of your pinky. It is the cutest little bottle you ever seen in your life. And I was thinking, you know, you could probably sell those through the mail. You know, get a case of those and just put it in an envelope and ship it over. Because like I said, it's the size, like 2/3 of your pinky. That's the whole bottle. And people like it. I don't know what the attachment, I'm not really a hot sauce guy, but wow, that people love that stuff. The military and civilians all around the world are gaga for that stuff. Whoa. So here we are in South Texas. Notice the terrain hasn't changed much. Flat, sagebrush, bushes, and an occasional cell tower. Whoa, get bumped around here. I had a flagpole, I can tell you where the wind's coming from. If you ever wonder about the wind, as a pilot, this is one of the tactics you figure out your wind direction. Look down at any water source. It could be a lake, a river, a swimming pool, or a creek, any standing water. The shiny side is where the wind is coming from, because the air has to pass over the shore, the coast, the bank, dip down and wrinkle the water. So you look down and there's a little sluice of a pond or a pool where it's a little flat area, and then everything else is wrinkled. So you can look, you do a little puddle you can do that with. I don't see no rollers. Yeah, they're by, come to think of it. And there are areas which I have not seen here where you have windmills, big, massive solar, big giant windmills. I don't think I saw any. Of course, it was dark yesterday, but I haven't seen any of those in a while. And there are small oil derricks, but you can't see 150 feet off the road in any direction. They have these little teeny tiny oil derricks. They've been out here forever. And they all kind of feed into the same pipeline, and each one produces a little bit, but there's like bunches of them out here. But no, I don't see any big ones. I didn't see any big ones on the way down here either. But I guarantee you there's gas pipelines out here in these bushes. And those don't require big framework. It's just about opening it and letting the pressure off. That's a tricky question. Let's just say that company policy does not allow you to carry weapons. And I'll leave it at that. But I am well protected on the road. generally speaking in life, people, there's some hotheads out there looking to cause problems, and I'm kind of a large person, and those hotheads have a tendency to avoid larger targets. Just saying, that's something that works to my advantage. Oh, and oh yes, fingernails, car keys, and harsh language. Yes, and some insults. Yeah, this not only is our firearms legal in the United States, in Texas they're extra legal. And there are people who hate the firearms. There's something. I think there's more firearms in the United States than there are people, though. So if firearms are really the problem, I think you know it. Lot lizards. I had that conversation yesterday with somebody. On YouTube, they show lot lizards everywhere, these truck stops. I have seen in my travels one, to my knowledge. And I think I was in New Jersey, and I was sitting at a Pilot, and there was a guy in a van, just like mine. The guy was probably 500 pounds. From just the chest up, I could see him, and he was using up the whole cockpit. The guy was all over the place. And, okay, we're in town here. And there was a woman standing there, and she was standing back talking to him, and I'm going, okay, this is interesting. And I kept on going and going and going. And I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the screen here, I'm looking out the window. And I said, okay, this is interesting. And I went for a walk, and I just happened to walk by them, and I'm listening, kind of caught the conversation, and they were negotiating price. And I'm sorry, but this woman was not Julia Roberts. Maybe John Roberts. This woman was not something that should have been in that line of work because she didn't have the qualifications. I'm not being rude, I'm being realistic, but this woman was not. And they were negotiating. Yeah, that's usually, like I said, when the government says give up your guns, that means they're going to do something you're going to shoot them for. But if the government announced tomorrow to give up your guns, the turn-in rate would probably be less than 5%. They would say, well, we know that you own. Oh no, this is the standard answer. Oh no, those guns were lost in a boating accident. Sorry. And there are firearms that go back so far. There are some firearms that are registered, some, but there's guns that have changed hands, in the last 50, 60, 70 years. You don't know. You can go to a buy-sell trade. Guns are out. You can't. It's like looking for wrenches. Turn in all your wrenches. Well, how are you going to prove all these wrenches exist? But yeah, that's not, no. And, there's people say, oh, well, the government. Well, the government are consistent of people that own guns also. There's just a lot of people out there this is affecting. But no, I don't foresee that happening. And, look at Switzerland. Their military is teeny tiny, but their national sport is shooting. And in Switzerland, you go through, it says, let me see, come on, traffic light. Same as when they turn the cameras off in other countries, unfortunately. Yeah. In Switzerland, they teach 16-year-olds how to shoot. You go through military training, and they literally give people assault rifles with ammunition and send them home. So if somebody suddenly felt the need to invade Switzerland, they're not going to call up the army. People are going to walk out their front door, and they're armed. And it's a mountainous country, which is 100% favors defensive fighting. So no one's going to waste their time invading Switzerland because you're just going to get run over. And the United States is the same thing. You roll in here, some countries says, oh, we're going to take the United States. Good luck. You have 300 million armed people. And people, by and large, know how to use their guns here. And they go, oh, well, you can't fight a fighter plane with a firearm. You're right, but that fighter plane's going to land eventually. It can't stay in the sky forever. You can't fight a tank. You're right. But that tank can't drive around and just run on that imaginary fuel. You got to get out of it eventually, and that's when you're going to have problems. So I don't think anybody would waste their time. Now, we have our political differences in the United States, but it's kind of like your family, growing up, you had brothers and sisters. You fought like cats and dogs, nature's, natural. That's what happens. But if somebody outside of your family started causing your family trouble, everybody is instantly and completely on the same team all at once, which is exactly what would happen if somebody took it upon themselves to invade the United States. You'd be into a gunfight you couldn't imagine the gunfight you'd come into. Waiting here. There we go. I don't even know what town this is. We're driving through it. This is the little South Texas country town. Kingsville. There it is. We're in the town of Kingsville. Yeah, you can't fight 300 million people because it's everybody you bump into. Everybody you bump into is going to be armed. And there are some pretty wild weapon systems out there people have gotten their hands on. It's just not the conventional, long-range, heavy-duty, insane weapon systems that are out there. There's a gun store not far from my house. I walked in there, and they had an M240 belt-fed machine gun sitting on the shelf. That is a current squad-level belt-fed machine gun the U.S. military uses, and they had one sitting on the shelf. It's $8,000. And I asked the guy, you sell many of those? And he goes, you'd be surprised how many people buy those. Oh well. My grandfather died in 1995. He was 79 years old. And before he died, he had a friend that had died a couple of years earlier who was a weapons collector. And I was a teenager at the time. When his buddy died, barely out of my teens. And the guy had 500 firearms in the basement of his house, leaning against the walls. He had a huge collection, which, that was his thing. And 5 of them were locked up. Those 5 weapons were given to my grandfather. And the only one that I know of was a bolt-action 222 that broke in half, manufactured in 1942, which was wildly revolutionary for the time. And it was built by the Skuda Works in Czechoslovakia. It was a very rare, kind of a light sniper rifle. That's the only weapon of the 5 that I ever saw. So I'm real curious as to what the other 4 were. They were probably something serious. Okay, we're about to get on 77. Okay, we're gonna go under this overpass here. You're Mexican? Cool. There's a lot of those down here. You'd be surprised. Mexico's full of them. We're gonna hit the highway here. 77 US 77 bypass and head north. Wow, this stops so much nicer when it doesn't have 2,500 pounds right around the rear end. Jeez. Way different. All right. Ooh, caboose. Look at that. Those kind of went out of style in the early 80s with automation. All right, I got to turn this back around here. I need another hand. Here we go. Yeah, the family farm in New York, we have train tracks behind the place. And as a kid, I was fascinated. 3 sets of tracks right across the single-lane road right behind us. And as a kid, I used to watch the trains go by, and the caboose would go by, which is the off-duty workers. And they'd be standing on the back smoking a cigarette or whatever, you wave as they went by. And then the early 80s roll around, and all of a sudden the cabooses started disappearing because of all the automation and whatnot. It was kind of sad. It was like an end of an era. But I didn't realize how primitive a caboose was. If you've ever been in one, have you ever seen the insides of a caboose? I don't know if they had power because there was a pot-bellied stove in the middle of the room, so they're having to make their own heat driving down the road, and that kind of caught me off guard. That I don't like just put the heat on. There was a bunk, a couple of bunks, a stove, a little closet toilet, and a pot-bellied stove in the middle of the room. And I'm like, whoa, that's primitive. That was their little box they lived in, banging on down the road. Whoa, get most bumped around here. I'm looking at that flag on the left over there. That's what kicking us around. It's a crosswind. Wow. Yeah, when I was driving my really big van, this thing got knocked all over the place doing this. This is bad, but that was way worse. Any questions or comments? Still down here in South Texas, heading northeast, trying to work my way. I guess we're going to be going through Victoria, Texas, and then up 59 to the Houston area. Yeah, it has this. See that little bit of green grass on the side of the road? That's unusual. This is usually a tan/khaki/brown terrain all the time, but there is farmland here. Something's been plowed up on the left and right. And again, I'll pivot this over the open field there, and I don't have a clue what they grow out here. If I was to say anything, I'd be making it up. A few years ago, I read somewhere, this is probably 10 years back, that said if every living, it's going to be on the other side of this hill here. Radar's going off. If every living, breathing person on the planet moved to the state of Texas, everybody would have 1,200 square feet. Of course, the population has changed since then, but still, you get the idea. This isn't really Tornado Alley. That's north. That's up into Oklahoma, and the panhandle of Texas has tornadoes. Texas isn't a marijuana state. They don't legalize marijuana. It's kind of funny if you look back in history and how governments treat things. There were times when coffee, alcohol, and every imaginable vice you could have was illegal, and the government found that it could make money off it, and all of a sudden it was legal. And the same goes for marijuana. The states that legalize marijuana have a tendency to be broke. So basically they turn into small-time drug dealers. They go, oh, marijuana's bad, marijuana will kill you, don't use marijuana. Oh, wait a minute, we can make money off it? Okay, we're going to legalize marijuana and tax the piss out of it. And all of a sudden, it's fine to have marijuana, which I'm not neither for or against it. I don't really care. If that's your thing, that's fine. But it just cracks me up how all of a sudden all these states have marijuana, and where's everybody dropping dead? You know, where's the problem? What happened? Was there like this big social change? Did the state collapse? Did society implode on itself? Or did people continue just to live their lives, and now the government's making tax money? I mean, that's... So basically, when states go broke, they turn into drug dealers. Yeah, and that was the people who fought against them. The number one opponent of legalization of marijuana was the alcohol companies, because people's budgets, you know, I'm not a drinker, so I don't mess with that. And I don't smoke either, so it's not, I mean, I have no dog in the hunt, but they don't want people spending that disposable alcohol money on something else. They want to just have their vice and nobody else's. Do you have a DOT card? Nope. I don't. There's no DOT tests and cards involved in this. When I joined this operation, they gave us a drug test, which is, I guess, standard. But that was the only time they ever did it. I stopped by the head shed occasionally, which has an open door 24 hours a day to drop off paperwork, and there's a washer and dryer and some showers and stuff there. Other than that, I don't come in contact with other people. No, I don't need a DOT card. This is just like driving a car. There is no difference between this and driving your car. Same rules apply. That's what I'm saying. It is so much easier than driving a truck. And I have met a lot of Expedite drivers that used to drive truck. Because they say, there's nothing to this. It's relaxing. Again, I don't fight for parking. I can take this van to the grocery store. I can take this van home. I can take it to the movie theater. I can do that. No, I'm just saying they don't. As a pilot, I've taken more drug tests than I can throw rocks at. You know, never failed one. It's not my thing. I'm not a drinker, not a smoker. I never tried drug tests, and I'm not trying to to stand on my high horse and say, look at me, it doesn't interest me. You know, I don't watch basketball, nor do I play basketball. Why? You know, it doesn't interest me. It's not my thing. I'm very interested. Owner, yes, I am an owner-operator. What I went through, they call it orientation. Let's call it brainwashing. When I went in, they say, you know, when you get hired on, they take your van, they bring you in to tell you what's going on. They took my van, took it into the back, and they weighed it so they know exactly how much weight I can carry. They got the measurements of it, and they put their logos over it. We sat down through orientation. There were 5 of us in the room. I was the only guy that owned my van. Everybody else was a fleet driver, which means they're driving for somebody else. And you don't have to go find somebody to drive for. The company has people. I mean, there's like one guy owned 5 vans. The companies have people that are looking for drivers, being a fleet driver. There is, different companies have different requirements for their vans. Some of them you have to have the super tall roof. I think Load 1 was the name, and you have to have the super tall roof van. Other companies are a little more whatever you have that they can use, but there's a limit on the age of the vehicle. You can't come in here with a 98 Chevy van because it's too old. I think they said it has to be no more than 7 years old, but once you're on and you're driving, if the van exceeds 7 years, you're fine. But when you start out, you have to have a van that's no more than 7 years old. That was the only string attached to this company. You know, so you can't go grab, grandma's 2001 Chrysler minivan and go, use this. It's not big enough. Ford drivers, as opposed to what? Yeah, the company is responsible for, again, they do my dispatching. They're looking at the load boards. They're the ones that are finding these loads. And there's people out here that do this on their own, that dispatch themselves. But how do you drive down the road and be searching for loads? How do you do that? Because the dispatchers, it's not like being a sales clerk at a convenience store. They're working on relationships. I was thinking of Expediting it's less overhead, it's less exposure, it's less hassle, it's less paperwork. Yeah, it's like driving your car. Imagine if somebody gave you a suitcase and said, okay, you got to go deliver this, you get in your car and you drive. That's the same concept. That's all you're doing. You're just driving around your car doing your thing. It's more laid back. But I met a guy, we were stuck in Morgantown, West Virginia. Please, your cries of jealousy mean nothing to me. We were in Morgantown, West Virginia over a weekend, and he was parked in a van near me, and we started talking. His name's Jeff. We started BSing, and he was an independent contractor. He had to join load boards trying to get loads, and I kind of talked about our company, and he eventually came on board. And so he was paying for his own van, he was paying his empty insurance and his loaded insurance, which is a lot, and he was paying $300 a month to be on load boards. And I said, look, dude, if you come on with these, you're going to save the loaded insurance, you're going to save the load boards, and you have a dispatcher who's been doing this for decades, who has relationships, who is fighting and kicking and clawing to find you cargo everywhere. And I've only been in the dispatch office once, and it looks like a gamer's paradise. The guy's got like 6 computer screens. Let's see here. Oh, I don't use the trucks. No, he was doing it on his phone. The guy was just doing it off his cell phone. I don't. They call me and they say, I got this, do you want it? Or do you want me to bid on this? Because when you have a company that has a reputation, they don't put the load on a load board. They just call the company and say, do you have a van that can take this? I don't, like I said, they're doing it's all on the cell phone now. So they'll call me, they say, okay, I got you when it's going here to here, and they give you the weights and the dimensions, and I say, what's the money? And you can actually negotiate the money, and if you don't want the load, you don't want to go there, or you don't like the numbers, you can just say, no thanks. And they'll go to the next person. or they'll realize they're not offering the right number. So you don't have to take just because they offer it to you. Again, you're an independent contractor. You know, and I've negotiated a few of my loads, and because of where I live, I'm kind of out of the core area, which is the northeast part of the country. They'll call me and say, hey, I go back in service and I may sit in my house for 2 or 3 days, which I'd rather sit at my house than sit out here on the road. And then they say, okay, we got you a preload for tomorrow. It's going to Indianapolis from Houston. I'm like, cool. And I go, that morning I get up and I go down. Well, yes, they're taking a cut. I mean, because they're doing a job. They're working to find you loads, and they don't make money if they're not keeping you loaded. It's not like they're sitting there goofing off. And I'm not paying for the load boards, and they're paying that monthly insurance fee. No, I've never seen an expediter pulling a trailer. That's not how this works. Never seen one. Yeah, they're taking a cut because they're doing work. Again, they're paying the insurance, and they're full-time dispatchers finding you loads. And you call them 24 hours a day. There's somebody answers. And you kind of, they have relationships with different people in different offices, and different dispatchers have different. That was the first cut up there. All right. Okay, here's what's going on. I'm starting to lose reception. It just cut out, and I think it's going to go out completely here in a minute. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to end this here, and when I get near Houston, depending on the situation, I might come back in service. That's going to be maybe 3 hours from now, and I'll come back on. But I think I'm about to drive out of my reception range. But you guys have a great day, and I'll catch up with you.